What's up, martial arts fanatics? Welcome back. As always, I'm Coach Greg. Today, I'm coming to you with a big announcement. I'm very excited about this. It's also why I have not been super active on YouTube the last 4 months. Although, going forward, I'm going to be putting out more stuff. I'm going to get active again, putting out more system breakdowns, more pre-fight analysis, more other content, stuff that you're excited about. But the reason I have not been super active for the last 4 months is I've been super active working on something else. Namely, this. Second edition of the Nan Fight System. Very, very excited about this. For those of you who've been following my channel for a while, you're familiar with the Nan Fight System. I reference it a lot. For those of you who are new, I'll give kind of a quick rundown on what it is before I start telling about all the things that I've added into this book since the first edition last year. The Nan Fight System, for those of you who are not aware, it is a approach towards fighting that takes all the best principles, concepts, and tactics used at the highest level of elite level combat sports, and it puts it together in a cohesive system that allows you to put the fight on your terms and do this in a repeatable and teachable process that you can go to over and over and over again. I've heard Bo Nickel talk about this a couple times, and I saw him on Joe Rogan talking about this, and I saw a video he just did with a seminar for Jocko, and he talks about the importance of using a system. When you look at guys like him, Gordon Ryan, and some of the best guys in the game, you can clearly identify systems that are used that allow them to get to a place where they want to be, put the fight on their terms, and deal with any obstacles that come up so they can redirect the fight and funnel it into the type of fight they want it to have. And that's what the Nan Fight System does. It is a very specific system that, you know, it's simple enough that as a beginner you can learn a lot out of it, but as you get more advanced, there's a lot of things in here that as you become intermediate and advanced level students, you will learn at all levels. Even at the highest level, there's things in here for everybody. There are things in here like so, including principles of striking, which I don't think anybody else really has anything decent on that. Techniques that are done that are not taught in the average gym, but you kind of figure out on your own, that are done at the highest level, that I think are important to discuss. The actual system, talking about things like the two boundary defense, expanding, contracting guard, overlapping defense systems, zones of coverage, all that stuff. Getting into actual strategies for specific situations that can occur. And then, of course, getting into other aspects of it, like chain wrestling, which in this book, I go into a lot more depth on chain wrestling. I also talk about a lot more situationals that can occur as you shoot for a single leg, and let's say they put their foot on the outside, things that you can do about that, right? Of course, I still have my takedown defense and things like that in here. I go into a lot of depth. This book, I go into a lot more detail on fighting against the cage and vertical barrier fighting, both offensive and defensive. A lot more depth on that one in this one, because there was things that I just didn't feel like I could get into in the first one that I wanted to expand on a lot to really explain the whole system of it. I also did, by the way, go into a lot more detail on boxing, particularly in footwork, and as well as combinations and counters. I go into a lot more depth on that type of stuff. The combination groupings that was in the first book, I refined it down to a little bit more digestible material. Instead of having 10 combination groupings that about half of them were amazing and half of them were okay, I really funneled them down and made 5 perfect combination groupings. And I explain what that means in the book as far as like what a grouping of combos does for you rather than individual combination work. And so it's not technique selection, it's a systematic approach to break people down. Let's see. Of course, I go into jiu-jitsu in this one. In the first book, I talk about some jiu-jitsu for self-defense and MMA ground and pound, getting back to your feet, mostly to try to keep the fight standing or to dominate from a top position. And I still have that in there and I expanded on it, but I also go into a lot of sport jiu-jitsu on this. I added 3 full chapters on sport jiu-jitsu. So I have a chapter where, you know, how do I put this? So it's not that I have amazing world-class jiu-jitsu. There are guys out there that are certainly much better than me at this. You know, I'm sure if you have a conversation with John Danaher, he's going to be able to tell you a lot more about jiu-jitsu than I am, right? And same thing with a lot of these other guys, Roger Gracie, Andre Galvao, all these guys. They just know more than me, and that's okay. But what I think that I do that separates me is, one is it all kind of pulls it towards an overall cohesive system, but also what I find happens is when people teach, they have a favorite technique and they show this, they show some variations and stuff like that, but what I do instead is I teach jiu-jitsu as I think it should be taught, because I think that there's a better way to teach jiu-jitsu, and that is presenting and starting at the beginning, starting with your entry, then going into the positioning, then going into your basic objective of trying to acquire a sweep or submission, whatever your basic objective is. But then dealing with obstacles that you're going to encounter along the way, and most of your time should be spent identifying obstacles and overcoming them, right? Learning what it takes to get that sweep and what's preventing you from getting it. But also, what are things that you can anticipate them doing to you? Both late recognition, when they start to leg weave or they start to knee cut, which, by the way, I have solutions for that I think are better than anybody else I've ever seen present, because most of the defenses for that stuff is not very good, in my opinion. Maybe it works great at the highest level, but for a guy like me, I just never found it worked. So I had things that I do that are really unique that I think you'll find are a lot easier. But I go into more than that. I also talk about the significance of things like hand placement and where they put their hands and what that means when they put their hands in this way. I talk about when they start to shift their weight in a certain way, what that means they're about to do and what you should be doing at that point. So it's a specific strategy that I approach it with. I also go into a lot more detail about grip fighting in judo. I have an entire chapter on judo and grip fighting in there to talk about how you should be getting your takedowns, but more specifically, how you should be using the gi as a weapon. Of course, I still have all the high percentile self-defense stuff that I had in the first one. I have the situational awareness and verbal de-escalation, all that stuff that you experience in the first one. You know, home invasions and all that stuff that I go into. But I also added a bunch of stuff on, I had an entire chapter on sports psychology, mostly dealing with anxiety and using CBT approaches and some other stuff like that to deal with anxiety. Not just people coming in the gym for the first time or anxiety when you're under the pressure of like a side control and stuff like that, but also dealing with things like competition anxiety, which is something I've been studying a lot of the last year or so, that I wanted to add in some stuff on that I think a lot of people will find helpful. But then, of course, I also still have my chapters on training methodology, which I've really refined that down, particularly dealing a lot more with like how to get the most out of mitt work and things like that. And then I go into things like martial arts as a business, philosophy, and all that fun stuff. So the second edition, it has a full 100 pages of additional content in here, including over 100 images to really support it. Now, there are several versions of the book available. The first one is this version that I'm showing you here. It's the basic paperback version. It's going for right now $35.99, but the base price is going to be $44.99. Okay. This is a 450 page book, fully color, great images, really great description. I also have the Kindle version, which is $4.99, and I have a hardcover if you want glossy images and a nice, beautiful presentation. That's expensive at $89. But I also have an economy version that I put out, which is a slightly smaller print size, slightly smaller spacing on it, and that reduces down from 450 pages to about 320 pages. And then I also replace the images with black and white instead of color. The economy version is only $24.99. So it's the same content, it's just a little bit of a less expensive version of it. But if you want the full color version, I think the paperback is the best way to go. It's the best value, right? It's color, it's nice presentation, it's the full 450 pages. I really cannot express enough what an amazing book this is. You know, every once in a while in life, you'll do something that surpasses your own expectations for yourself. And you get done with it, you're like, I can't believe I just did that. And that is how I feel about this book. It's really something special, and I hope that you guys enjoy it. I'm gonna put a link in the description below. Please let me know if you have any questions about it. Of course, if you are not big readers, I do have the course still available on Dynamic Striking and BJJ Fanatics, but the two really go hand in hand, okay? So if you get the book, it goes into a lot more depth, but the video will give you some better visual presentations of stuff. So I strongly encourage you to actually do both. But I hope that you enjoy it, and make sure you let me know what you think. If you do get the book, please post a comment post a review on Amazon. It only helps me out, and I appreciate you guys. Thank you.